Welcome to your video for test 2 practice exercises for your break-even food and beverage example. So, your restaurant served 100,900 covers last year, generating $1,376,276 in annual revenue. Food and beverage costs are 33%. Other variable costs at this level of revenue are 22%. Fixed costs are $475,000, and the restaurant pays 33% in income tax. So the first question is, what was the break-even revenue for this restaurant last year? So again, just like your hotel example, we need to figure out our contribution margin percent, which is 100% minus variable cost percent. We're going to have to find out our break-even sales revenue, which is our fixed cost divided by our contribution margin percentage, and our break-even units, which is our break-even sales revenue divided by our average unit selling price. Okay? In this case, for a restaurant, a unit is going to be a cover. So first, let's find out our contribution margin percentage. It's going to be 100% minus, and what are our variable costs in this case? Food and beverage costs, you should feel comfortable with the fact that those are variable costs because they fluctuate with sales, so 33%. Excuse me. And then we're going to also take away other variable costs are 22%, so 22%. We're going to minus that out of the way as well. Okay. So my contribution margin percentage is 45%. From that, I can find out my break-even sales revenue, because my break-even sales revenue is my fixed cost, which is, in this case, $475,000, which is given here, divided by my contribution margin, which is 0.45 or 45%. Okay. So I needed to make, and if we do this, $1,055,556 in break-even sales revenue to basically break even. Okay. Now, the next step is we could probably, before we move forward, it's not a bad idea for us to find out the average check, okay, that we need, or that we had last year, sorry, and then what break-even units is. So what was our average check last year is what we could find out quickly now, and that's going to help us to find out our break-even units. We don't have this number yet. Okay? Question only says what was the restaurant's break-even revenue last year, but it's good to find out the break-even units too. Okay? So average check last year, if I had this much in revenue, $1,376,276, and I divide that by how many covers I served, that would give us an average check, right? So we had $13.64 as an average check. So for my break-even units, if we look, it's my break-even sales revenue, which is my $1,055,506, divided by my average check of $13.84. It's an average unit selling price, but in this case, a unit is cover. Average cover selling price is the same thing as saying average check. So break-even units, we would get rid of decimals. I need to serve 76,268 people in order to break even. Okay? So that's what we would figure out at this point. So let's move on to our next question. So based on the information above, how much net income did the restaurant make? And use break-even in formulas to figure it out. So we need to figure out the operating profit for any sales volume. And there's a calculation for that using break-even formulas, because we need to find out our sales, okay, times our contribution margin percentage minus our fixed costs. This is another one, okay, of the formulas for break-even. Operating profit for any sales volume is sales times contribution margin percentage minus fixed costs. So feel comfortable with that as well. And that's only going to give me my operating profit, which is the same as saying my income before tax. The question is asking how much net income, which is really my income after tax. Okay? And then we're going to have to figure out our tax at one point. So our income before tax, which is my operating profit, okay, is going to be my sales. Okay, so my sales is going to be the sales from last year, so my $1,376,276. Okay, and try not to get confused between break-even sales revenue and what's being asked here. Based on the information above, how much net income did the restaurant make? Okay, so we're asking me based on this, because if we use this number, it should tell us that we made $0 because that's just the break-even number. Okay, we want to know for $1,376,276, how much did the restaurant make? So we would multiply that by our contribution margin percentage, so 0.45, which we found out here, okay, minus our fixed costs, so $475,000. That should give us our operating profit, okay, for that amount of revenue. Okay, and that's all we did there. Now, if we then multiply our 100, the question says net income. So we need to, if this is my income before tax, which is my operating profit, I need to take away tax to find out my income after tax. So $144,324 multiplied by that income tax that's mentioned here, 33. So that's how much I have to pay in tax. Okay. And then if I simply go $144,324 minus my taxes, that means that based on this information, I made this much net income last year. That's what the restaurant made last year. Okay? And for this question, it was asking for the break-even sales revenue. Excuse me. Now, last question. So I just hired an Algonquin hospitality grad that claims he can reduce my cost of goods by 3 points, and with his marketing expertise increase my covers by 5%. His salary would add an extra $60,000 in fixed costs. Is he worth the $60,000? Okay, so we're going to compare new information with old information. Okay, so my new cost of goods sold would be, if we look, 3 points. So it's 33% before, and he's saying he can reduce it by 3 points. Remember when I say 3 points, it means 33% minus 3. Okay? So 33% minus 3% is what that means. Okay? 3 points is the same thing as saying 3%. Now we're not reducing it by 3%, we're reducing it by 3 points. So my new cost of goods is going to be 30%. So that's going to affect my variable cost percentage, right? Because before I added my food and beverage cost, which was 33%, and my variable cost, which was 22%. I had 55% before. Now it's really going to be 30% plus the other variable costs, which is 22%. So now my variable costs are 52%. Guess what that affects? Okay. That affects my contribution margin percentage now, because it's 100% minus my variable cost percentage, which is now 58. I now have 48%, where if you take a look, before it was 45%. Okay. So we really needed to know that for sure. We need to go through that whole process. Now my new fixed costs, my fixed costs have changed as well. Okay? Because before they were $475,000, but now if I want to do this, I have to pay this person, this grad, $60,000. Okay? So that's going to change my fixed costs as well. It's going to bring them up to $535,000. Lastly, I'm going to have different covers in this scenario, because this grad's telling me that they can increase my covers by 5%. So my covers last year were 100,900 covers. Okay. And if I go multiply by 1.05, that would give us that my new covers are going to be 105,945. Another way of doing this, okay, if you don't feel comfortable with that, would be to go and first find out what 100,900, that's the amount of covers, what 5% of that number is, 0.05, and then add it back to the 100,900. Okay. It's the same result, whichever way we do it. Okay. Do whatever feels comfortable for you. Now, we're going to have some different information because of this. So we need to evaluate before, and we need to evaluate after. So before, and actually, sorry, I'm going to evaluate the covers. I'm going to evaluate the revenues. I'm going to evaluate the per cover revenue. So I want to do that for before, and I want to do that for after. So I want to evaluate before this grad came along, what was going on with my covers, my revenues, and my per cover revenue. And I also want to find out after what happens. Okay. So covers before this suggestion was 100,900, and it's definitely not in dollars. It's going to be a number. Okay. Covers after is 105,904. 105,945 covers, and we just got that by bringing over this number. So far, okay, this is definitely worth it. Okay, if you take a look, and we can put this in green. Sorry, the question is asking, is he worth the $60,000? Okay. Now you always want to put out some math to help make this decision. Now, revenues before was $1,376,276. Okay, so we'll get rid of this. Now, here is where it's interesting. Okay, so how do I find out my $1,445,090? Okay, so we need to first talk about our per cover revenue, which is basically an average check. So $13.64. This isn't going to change from one scenario to another. We're going to pretend like there's no mention of my average check changing. So it's going to be the same no matter what. Okay. So if I have an increase in covers at that same average check, I'm simply going to go my 105,945, my new covers, times my average check that I normally experience. So which one's better out of these two? Okay, so far I'm liking this, okay, because if I use my still average check, we can just say average check if you want, okay, of $13.64. I'm happy with these two numbers. It means that I'm going to have more revenue because I have more covers. That's just obvious. But now I really want to know how much profit I'm going to make. That's the important thing. Okay. So if we use our break-even calculations, so break-even operating profit for any sales volume. If you remember, it's going to be our sales in dollars times our contribution margin percentage minus our fixed costs. So our sales with this new scenario is $1,445,090. We're going to multiply that by our new contribution margin, 0.48, and we're going to subtract it by our new fixed costs in this scenario. Okay? Because I want to know for this scenario what's going to happen. And with this scenario, I'm going to make $158,643. So now that I know that I'm going to make that much, I want to do a comparative analysis of these two scenarios. So we're going to use the new scenario as our current year. You could remember that, but we're using that. So to find out our absolute difference, it's going to be what we're using, what we want to compare to what we are comparing it to. Okay? So $158,643 operating profit minus the scenario, okay, in this right here when I was making my money. Okay? So when I was making my net income last year, it was $144,324. Okay, I don't even need to put it in brackets. But that means that with this scenario, I'm making $14,319 more by paying this grad $60,000 more because they're reducing my variable costs and increasing my covers. It's helping my revenues, and I'm making more profit than I did without them. Okay? And then my relative difference would simply be my absolute difference divided by what I'm comparing it to, which is, and I'm sorry, won't use cell referencing, $319, which is my absolute difference, divided by what I was comparing this number to, so 144,324. And we would want to multiply that by 100 to find out the percentage. So these are definitely good things. Okay, so absolute difference with this new scenario, not only would my covers increase, my revenue would increase, but I would be making more operating profit by $14,319, which is a 9.92% increase. So is it worth the $60,000? Definitely. So those are 3 different videos on the practice exercises for test 2. You'll have similar questions on your test. They won't be exactly the same, but these are good warm-ups as well as the exercises that we completed in class. Please take your time. Email me with any questions.